Hi, everyone. Welcome back to this special edition of GMID right here on Hospitality Today Live. And I'm very, very excited to introduce our next guest for you. He is the co-founder with one of the largest full-service meeting solution companies with hundreds of associates and thousands of events worldwide. Brian Stevens with ConferenceDirect. And that's not only Brian's venture, he actually has helped establish SearchWide, an executive search company, as well as the Catholic Disability Foundation and the GBTA Foundation. An active volunteer and fundraiser, Stevens has been a member of many industry boards. And over the course of his career, there have been many honors as well, including ASAE Academy of Leaders Award, PCMA Lifetime Achievement Visionary Award, MPI President's Award, and more. On a side note, Brian is a member of 4 country clubs and the Knights of Malta while being inducted as a Knight Commander in the Order of St. Gregory. Wow, I want to know more, and I bet you do too. Then let's do this. We'll be right back, right here on GMID Edition with Brian Stevens. Well, here we are with Mr. Brian Stevens. Welcome, sir.
Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are.
Yeah, exactly. All over the world here. I got a little nervous and hung up on the video because I'm like, wow, finally got Brian Stevens here with us on Hospitality Today Live. I was just a little nervous there. And especially being a real knight and shining armor, that's really cool. I love that. And 4 country clubs. My goodness, is it to play golf or to drink martinis?
Mostly to play golf.
A good golfer, I bet. Well, this is, again, exciting to have you here because you've had a whirlwind of a career, including being one of the youngest officers at Hilton Hotels. And you've seen everything in this industry, the ups and the downs, and have experienced it all. And this pandemic certainly is not your first rodeo, is it?
Right. We've had a few downturns in the market over my career. True.
Yeah, it's been pretty devastating, especially with this one, no doubt. And I'm sure that with this whole pandemic that has happened, ConferenceDirect relationships are very, very important, and supplier and client in particular. What has this pandemic journey been like for ConferenceDirect when dealing with both ends of these type of relationships?
Well, we've been in different phases. So in the beginning, there was a lot of what we called lift and shift. So when we shut down in the second half of March 2020, we had people who were thinking that we might be singing at Easter, in church in April. So there was a lot of the people who were trying to move their conventions and meetings to further dates. And as we did not come up with a vaccination, we literally had to cancel everything for 2020. And so there was a lot of broken glass. We were really on the side of there is no way we can meet. As much as we hated to cancel because that meant no revenue for us, it was the right thing to do at the time for health safety. The hospitals were jammed up and there was no solution. So The difference between then and now is that things are different and things are actually exploding, really.
That's good to hear. We need that. And coming from you, because you definitely have been out there and you're covering all, talking to your associates, talking to your clients. It covers a lot of ground. And so to hear that things are coming back quickly, that is a big, huge plus for us to know about. So what's interesting, though, is during this pandemic, many businesses had to be introduced and embrace the hybrid model, which we're pretty used to in this industry. The experience for most reminded me of that old saying, man plans and God laughs, because it's something that we've always been doing, but yet why is it such a mystery to other companies and organizations outside of our industry? And your associates are so used to the remote. They've been doing the remote working for years, but is it tough to build a corporate culture in this new norm when it comes to remote? Because those other companies had to get used to all that with their employees at home.
Well, are you referring to our company or our customers' companies?
Customers, companies.
Yeah. So essentially, we got into high gear in terms of virtual, and we started doing, we didn't really even call them hybrid. We did virtual. There was no such thing as really hybrid in the beginning. Hybrid might have looked like 3 different locations where there was video programming, similar to what we're doing right now. It was completely virtual. But in terms of the question is that we definitely have corporations who, for the future, will continue to extend their meetings virtually. We have people who used to have an audience of 7,000 in person, now have an audience of 30,000 with the hybrid, and they like that. We actually have one client, and I can only speak about 1 or 2 clients who made more money because they went virtual. They did not have to, register someone on site. Everything was online. The registration fees were about the same, and they didn't have to provide breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So it's all over the map. One shoe does not fit all. Every client is unique. Every client is different.
That's good to hear. Yeah. And that's how you have to approach it for each and every one of them, because it depends on their situation. Just like even pre-pandemic, it depends on their budget. It depends on where the site selection is going to be. A lot of depends on that part, but even more so, like you said today. Interesting. Well, I heard this quote I wanted to share with you. It's from Dr. Michael Ryan with The Who. He said, pretty much, right at the beginning of the pandemic, he said, all countries need to review their strategies now. What worked yesterday will not work today. Do you think our companies, our businesses, our industry needs to, pretty much do the same? And if so, what is ConferenceDirect doing differently in this new working era?
So I do agree with the doctor that we definitely have to reconstruct our industry and how we do business. But I'd have to say that the majority of our association clients, those people who have networking as the number one reason they get together, are doing gangbusters. We had a record February in terms of future bookings. I think perhaps what the doctor was referring to maybe was corporate America, which I believe is not only is it sluggish in returning, But I think we've probably re-engineered ourselves or reconstructed ourselves out of some of those meetings that used to take place that were discretionary. The big shifts that are taking place are almost like overnight. To give you an example, I was in Palm Springs yesterday, and we have 0 patients with COVID in ICU in any hospital in the Valley. So that's a really big shift, that when you consider where we were and where we are now, and that's like an overnight shift, really. And so we're seeing a lot of people making plans moving forward. A meeting that may not have happened in 20 or 21, I think when they announce that they're having it in 22 or 23, there's a lot of signups. I consider it very similar to a family reunion. If you haven't had one in a while, people tend to show up more than if you have one every year. So in terms of the corporate market, it's still way behind. This notion of, I'll give you an example. I'm not going to mention the name of the client because it's confidential, but they're one of the big 4 accounting firms, right? So they're going now to their clientele and they're saying to the client, we can do your, I'm going to call it evaluation. We can do our consulting on, let's call it workplace is the subject matter. We could do it for $10 million in person, meaning that they would interview everyone in person, or we could do it for $8 million virtually. Which would you prefer? Now, I'm not suggesting that there are 0 meetings, but what I'm suggesting is that all of the previous face-to-face interviews that were done by these big accounting firms, the big 4, are now being done virtually. And the customers are saying, well, what's the difference in the quality?
Right.
And they're saying, well, we're having the same MBA guy on our team talking to your executives. It's the same content. The difference is that we're not in your office. And they're saying, great, because we're not in our office either. So what we're seeing is so from a business travel perspective, those firms are way down, right? Yet, so we're also seeing a bump in recruitment. This whole so just to give you an example, we have 6,000 associations, and if you survey the members of the associations, why do you attend? Well, if it's a trade association, they're trying to figure out what their competition's doing. You can't do that on a Zoom. So they're going to see what their competition's up to, whether it's automotive or home builders or, building trades or medicine. On the professional side, the non-trade professional societies, about 20% of the reason people go to those is to find a new job.
Right.
And they are eyeball to eyeball with people who can hire them. And what we're seeing is that there is a for hire sign on every university, every Home Depot, every restaurant. And so there is a lot more, I'm going to call it demand for the in-person on this association side. And where there's a blend is that we all think of California realtors as being, a professional society. But at the end of the day, the mothership, Keller Williams or Coldwell Banker, are trying to find the next generation of top performers, and they're walking around the exhibit hall and trying to find one another. And so, you know, we're very bullish on the future. I think that the one thing that, and maybe this is a future question you're going to ask me, is the pivot that we've made from counseling our customers into what is a force majeure and what is not.
Yeah.
So for a long period of time, we would have customers, let's call it in 2021, for example, they would say, you know, our members really don't want to get together. They're physicians or nurses. If they go to the conference, they have to quarantine for 14 days. They can't be out of work that long. And, you know, we would go to the hotels and the venues and the convention centers and say, look, can we lift and ship this to another year?
Sure.
Now, today, that's probably not the case. So, you know, force majeure is not your president having COVID, Omicron, is not a reason for a force majeure.
Right.
The fact that supply chain is not giving you your products because they're on a ship is really not the hotel's fault, and
Right.
it's not a force majeure.
Right.
And the fact that there's a war going on across the ocean is not a force majeure.
Right. Right.
So there's a fine line now where
Yeah.
we're shifting over to getting away from fear as a force majeure and using real life examples. Now, people can have things in their contracts. You know, the one thing that I think is the most unspoken at the moment are the number of main first tier cities that have labor contracts coming up for renewal. It's enormous. I believe we probably have, of the top 10 cities in the United States, probably 4 of the top 10 are going to be up for grabs in the next 4 months. So, so you know, now if you have that written in your contract that you can cancel based on a picket line or a strike or one of those iterations of a labor dispute, you know, that's fine. But if you don't have it in your contract, it's not going to constitute a cancellation. And I think that you know, we have a homeless situation in some major cities where the homeless have been occupying dormant space, which might be the convention center area. It could be a downtown location. Honestly, that's not a force majeure. And I think that we're in that period of time where people are saying, well, this isn't the city I booked. When I booked this in 2018, the Nordstroms was open, and we could we didn't see tents, and we didn't see any homeless. So you know, we've got some work to do on both sides. We have to clean up the cities, right? And we've got to. But what's really going to help is tourism and having more and more people be willing to go to these first tier cities. You know, New York, Chicago, San Francisco, Seattle, San Diego. These are first tier cities, and they have been affected quite a bit by the lack of, I guess you could say, tourism. So, you know, an empty convention center for a year and a half. Many of the municipalities have filled them for the purpose of human services. So
right. So it looks like there's a lot more education and being flexible and trying to stay up with contracts changes more than ever, it sounds like, because we are in a new era, and it means new business, in other words. So everybody's got to be educated, it sounds like. Boy, it's it's something that we all have to stay up on and work together, continue to work together on. It sounds
Yeah,
like.
and I think that there's also good news is that we have a lot of people who need jobs, and there are a lot of jobs open. The airfares right now are pretty wanky. I believe that the yield management systems the guardrails are off, right? So you'll find a round trip fare from LA to Fort Lauderdale for $99. And then you'll find a round trip fare from Washington, D.C. last week to Arizona for $1,700. Same coach seat.
Yeah.
And basically what we really need to get back to is getting those mothball 737s back in the air. And what's really restricting us in many cases is the labor shortage. They just don't have enough trained flight attendants and trained pilots to put them all back up in the air. And Hertz went from being like bankrupt to now making a ton of money.
Yeah.
So and my rental car, that used to be $70 is now $300 a day. And you're sitting there saying, what's changed? And what's really changed is that many of the corporations shut down, and they hunkered down, and rebuilding is going to take some time.
Yes, it definitely is. So, and where the clients are going now would be a curiosity to our viewers, because according to the Star Report, the occupancy has been shifted away from the major cities to cities that have never been considered before. Are you seeing the associates working with clients that are looking above and beyond just those top 10 cities in the market?
Absolutely. We like to tout that we have, a convention of 17,000, and we have one of 10,000 and 12,000. Our bread and butter is 175 room group.
Okay.
So that's our sweet spot. We do that. We do 20 of those a day. And those are really, so just to give you an idea, 50% of Hyatt hotels right now are considered resorts. So when you take for every Denver or, every Seattle, they've got another resort somewhere. And what we're seeing is a lot of people pivoting to a resort, and we're seeing an extension like we've never seen before. Think about the notion that your entire workforce, whether it's technology or it could be insurance or whatever, your workforce is working from home.
Right.
So you now have a company meeting, and you can take that company meeting anywhere you want. Taking it to a resort means possibly that the executive could bring their family.
Right.
And so what we're seeing is an uptick in resort sales. We're seeing a length of stay that's increasing. And in many cases, the corporations are allowing the associate to bring their families and actually extend their stay a little bit. So the law firms that used to go to Manhattan, San Francisco, might go to, for example, Half Moon Bay, or they might go on the East Coast to the Cloisters or some other place near water. So I mean, the room rates are incredible. So I got a hold of, I actually have some equity in a hotel in Palm Springs, and we're running the highest average rate we've ever run. Weekends are now, we used to consider weekends Friday and Saturday night. Now weekends are considered Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. We used to have people drive to those locations from Southern California to Palm Springs. Now we're seeing Texas plates, a lot of Arizona plates. People are just considering resorts to be their second office in many cases.
Wow.
So we're not in the transient market. We're not in the airline business. We're just meetings and conventions. But we are seeing requests for more locations that could be considered resorts, or I'll call it a soft resort.
Right. Well, those resorts used to be a perception situation pre-pandemic, and it's interesting to see it change along with other things and bringing up other challenges. But yet, there's always a solution. As a matter of fact, I was just reading in the Smart Meetings magazine this month, and I thought this was really interesting. I was really excited to talk to you about it because this has to do with pricing. And it's called Architect Model of the Third Party Meeting Planning. It's a paid for service is what they're talking about. It might become, pretty much the norm, the time-consuming process to visit multi-cities with a client to discuss room accommodations, food and beverages, space, et cetera, can be an expectation of commission or fee paid at the closing of the program. Now, of course, that's an out-of-pocket expense up front, but if the client decides to go elsewhere or cancel the program, that's loss of time is what they're saying. So they're saying the solution is have a letter of intent with a deposit to pay for creative time if the company goes, as they always say, we're going a different direction. But if everything works out, then the deposit is applied to the conference. Bringing paid for time, shifting to that, it could become permanent. Or what do you think of that? Is that something that ConferenceDirect would look into doing?
We certainly have some proprietary agreements with certain clientele. However, I think that the beauty of our model is similar to that of a commercial or a retail travel agent and a retail. I'm sorry, I said travel agent. I meant real estate agent. Many a time we have used real estate agents to look around for a home, and we may not even select to buy a home. And that's the risk that the realtor takes when they take on a client. So I hear what you're talking about, but truthfully, I think that we're beyond that type of situation now. I understand what happened previously. A lot of people did a lot of work, and then it was thrown out the window because of COVID. And certainly a lot of generous clients of ours paid us regardless. And that was very, very nice and appreciated. However, going forward, we don't work for free. So going forward, as long as that person holds the meeting, we're going to get paid our commission from the hotel, and we'll be fine with that. So I don't see us going into a fee-basing sourcing tradition. I see us going much more back to normal. We had a situation where during COVID, you mentioned country clubs. So we raised $500,000 at LA Country Club and gave the money to our caddies because they couldn't work.
Right.
That's not something we're going to continue.
Right.
That was a fee for cancellations. Why did we do it? In order to keep that person coming back now, right?
Right.
So we have 80 caddies, and we wanted to keep them. We lost 40 of them during COVID. Why? Because they didn't have any income.
Right.
So we took up a fund, all right, to do that. Similarly, some of our clients wrote checks to us because they didn't want to lose our associate. And we're beyond that now. We had a record February. If all those meetings happen, even if they only happen at 80%, we'll be fine.
That's good. That's good. Good to hear that. And it goes back to relationships. That's what our industry is all about. I think it's going to be stronger than ever before. So possibly that pay for service won't even apply to any company in our industry.
Yeah, I think that when you're, unfortunately, when you're a single practitioner and you have zero resources to lean on, I'm not going to tell you that all of our associates were able to make do. We had to bail out
Right.
a number, but I think that's part of being a part of a large family organization where we try to look after one another.
Right, exactly. And so staying on the fee subject, what about speaker fees? Virtual versus in person? Any comments there?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because I was asked to sponsor a speaker, and it was at a society. One of the things I am is a fellow of ASAE, and it's a small society. It's invitation only. I've been there for longer than I want to admit to, and I'm probably one of the guys that they consider a big sponsor inside that society. And they said to me, "Would you sponsor the speaker?" And I said, "Sure." And then I found out the speaker was virtual. And I said, "Well, whoa, wait a minute now. What's the difference between the virtual fee, because I'm paying it, and the not virtual?"
Right.
And said, "Well, we never asked the question." And I said, "Sure, because you're not paying it, I am." So I went back to the speaker and asked them what their normal fee was, and they said, "Well, that's the part you're paying." And I said, "Well, no. And then I started getting this where you're saving airfare." And I said, "We're in Puerto Rico, you're in DC, you're saving, 12 hours of travel." So we negotiated a lower fee for that purpose.
Right.
And she will come on virtually, to the audience. And it will have we're going to miss out on the coffee after the talk, that how it is. You're a speaker.
Right.
And, afterwards somebody comes up to you and says, "Deborah, I had a question for you." Follow up,
Right.
off the record question. We're missing all that.
Yeah.
So, I think that there's a significant difference between in person and virtual.
I do too. I totally agree with you. And I'm so glad to hear that you had a gangbuster of a February. I think a lot is going to come back bigger and stronger than ever. I call it meeting revenge because we have a lot of time to make up. And the client knows that. They're out there, looking for venues, which is going to be important and probably tough to find too. Don't you think? The venues are just...
Yeah,
especially when hotels are not really building ballrooms anymore. It seems like the venues are just starting to just be soaked up, and maybe there's going to be some multi-contracts involved because of it.
Well, I think there's distraction going on right now that a lot of people don't see. Woodman Park closed. We pulled $25 million. Well, we didn't. They kicked us out. Boom, we're closed. Very quietly, Heinz closed in Boston, the convention center. We don't have enough space for a normal September, October, May in the United States. If you were to look at all the groups that want to meet in October, excluding Jewish holidays, people that want to meet in May, excluding Memorial Day, and probably Mother's Day. I mean, there aren't enough ballrooms. There aren't enough convention centers. So we're seeing a lot of development in Las Vegas because I believe they get it. And I also think that you're going to see people who are ultimately going to have to shift their long-term strategy to a second-tier city. But from my perspective, now is the time to book New York, Chicago, San Francisco, Seattle, San Diego. Why? Because a lot of people are distracted by the, I guess you could say, lack of infrastructure, the fact that some of the stores are closed or some of the restaurants are closed. But ultimately, I've gone to a lot of our beer budget champagne taste clients and said, you've always wanted to go to New York. Now's the time to book it. You've always wanted to go to San Francisco.
Right.
Now's the time to get in there.
Good point.
And it's going to all boats will rise with the tides. It's going to happen. But on par, I think that we do not have enough convention center space for prime periods, given the new generation of people coming up.
Yeah.
So the population is going to get larger. And so ultimately, I think, I don't know how it's going to work in some of these cities where, they, like I mentioned, Woodman Park, you take that ballroom out or the whole hotel out, where do those people go now? So there's more compression.
Yeah, big time, definitely. Well, this has been such a delight to talk to you. I can talk to you for another hour on your wisdom with this with the industry and what's going on at ConferenceDirect. I guess I just want to close though by mentioning, GMID is today, and just curious, what does it mean to Brian Stevens?
Well, I am so proud of all of the EIC organizations that have come together today to really bring to the Capitol and to our leaders in Congress and Senate to tell them how much our industry means, because we are bigger than automotive. We're bigger than a lot of industries, oil, that get a lot of lobbying on the Hill,
right,
and a lot of attention. And I think it's probably because, when you mention the word hospitality, when you mention conventions, a lot of people don't aggregate all of those numbers. But I don't think there's any one of us that doesn't know a hotel person or a restaurant person or somebody who is in transportation. And my goodness, it represents probably 8 to 10% of the gross national product in the United States. So it's enormous. The delta has been enormous in terms of how far down we've gone. And I believe that the restoration will come when people start to greenlight more meetings.
Right. Totally agree. Boy, yep, we're bigger than the pharmaceutical industry, retail. The list goes on and on. There's no excuse. But good thing the administration passed the recent bill to get some of the money to us. So we'll see how fast that can turn things around for us as well. Well, this has certainly, again, been such a delight, Mr. Stevens. Thank you so much. And I want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to connect with you, because I'm sure they'd like to further the conversation as well. So I'm imagining your email works. Is there any other way that they can get in touch with you?
Well, we have our annual meeting in San Francisco, actually. We just announced it on Friday, June 12th through the 16th. And a lot of the supply community will come and attend that. And we will have a lot of one-on-one sessions. All of our associates that have business will be there. And we also have a newsletter, Meeting Mentor newsletter that goes out. So people can sign up for that on our website.
Good, good. Glad to hear that. Well, thank you again for joining us. This has definitely been a great day here at GMID Special Edition. And I'm sure I'll be seeing you at one of those conferences sooner or later.
Great. I hope so too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My pleasure.